So I just want to start by saying, and I think we should all raise hands to the fantastic technician team at the back. And the amazing translators also at the back. And the team on the front desk and doing coffee and food for us. I think all of these events are impossible without these wonderful people. And I'm going to hand over to Alexandra to make some comments. And thank you. I'm so glad you're here. I know it's been difficult, but I'm glad you're here.
I'm very glad I'm here as well. Can you hear me? Great. So if you would indulge me, I would like to begin these very rough closing remarks with a personal anecdote. In 1994, 30 years from now, not far from here, the French Institute of Thessaloniki, I attended an international symposium titled From the Photography of Photographers to the Photography of Artists, organized by the Department of Photography of the Faculty of Graphic Arts and Design of the TE of Athens, where I studied at the time. Beyond the content of the presentations and the heated debates inside and outside the lecture theatre, which once again confirmed the deep schism between photography per se and photographic practices by artists in Greece, the symposium also revealed another fact: the marginal place women working in and with photography occupied in the developing photographic discourse. Among 11 prominent art historians, photography curators, and photographers from Greece and Europe, only one female art historian was invited to join the discussions. As a diligent 23-year-old photography student, I sat through the entire event taking notes on male wisdom while wondering why no women photographers and artists were invited. Looking at my course mates crowding the French Institute room, most of them women, I thought, just you wait until we grow up. Things will change, and they have. We have come a very long way. So just by looking at this room, it is really gratifying to see how many women now lead successful careers as artists, documentary, fashion and advertising photographers, museum curators and directors, researchers and writers, publishers, gallerists and educators at the very forefront of the field, both nationally and internationally, representing a major paradigm shift in the expanded field of Greek photography. It is also a sign of changing times that the National Museum of Contemporary Art is currently holding the exhibition Women Together, along with a retrospective of renowned female performance artist Lida Papakonstantinou, a long overdue exhibition. Meanwhile, the Benaki Museum has organized a major touring retrospective and voluminous publication on the work of 20th century photographer Nellis. Such initiatives seek to redress the historic gender imbalance in canonical art and photography histories, to reimagine these narratives and reposition women's work in museum collections and exhibitions. The exhibition Her Stories and the conference Hidden Histories, the first of their kind in Greece, have particular symbolic value at this particular point in time. As the introductory text for Her Stories explains, the Fast Forward Conference provided us with a pretext to identify gaps and hidden stories regarding women's photographing practices in Greece. While women have been dynamically involved in photography since the late 19th century, as Mariana Coralli just discussed, their activities were often overlooked and underexposed, lacking critical and curatorial attention until the end of the 20th century. The exhibition and publication Her Stories endeavored to piece together the largely fragmented and often unknown bigger picture of Greek women's photography, uncovering hidden narratives told by and through photography, and give voice and agency to women, those identifying as women and non-binary practitioners from different walks of life and generations. This pursuit informed and was informed by the key questions that we explored at the conference. How can we understand women's photography considering the diversities of prescriptive identities and socially constructed performances of femininity in different periods? How can photography become a weapon for women's equality against the oppressive power of heteronormative patriarchy, the state, and capitalism? Where are the stories of women in front and behind the camera that are silenced or disregarded from normative art histories and institutions? How may women's practices be included in multiple narratives, and how can their stories be represented in museum context? Over the past 2.5 days, it has been illuminating to see how these questions have been addressed within and against various cultural and socio-political contexts across the globe. For instance, we found similarities in the performativity of gender in Greek photography in the photographs of young women of Chinese photographers like Lu Yang and Pixie Liao, and in the depiction of herself as an older woman by Rosie Martin in Outrageous Ages. And we also identified common threads in the expression of queer identities in historical vernacular images and contemporary transfeminist movements. There's been a lot of food for thought and takeaways, which Anna and Maria will further outline. We discuss how women have used photography to address social and climate emergencies through activism or artivism, as Clara suggested. We explored how photography can be a nation-building tool that helps create imagined communities. We examine the significance of securing and caring for women's cultural heritage and counter archives or unarchives, also using the capabilities of digital media. We also considered the process of archivization, who decides what to collect and to what extent, the institutional and personal biases involved, how archives can be integrated into broader institutional narratives, and how practical issues such as lack of space and resources can turn archive fever into archive frustration, as Sandra eloquently put it. We had many hidden and forgotten her stories and new attempts to reevaluate how women and their practices have been authored and situated in the art historical canon. We discuss how the forgotten labor has been instrumental in the photographic industry, whether in the studio, the factory, or the illustrated press. We gain valuable insights into the invisible and newly visible histories of women photographers with disabilities, and so inspiring examples of regendering photographic practices, the demasculinization of the notion of a flaneur and astrophotography, reclaiming urban space and darkness. It is this knowledge, agency, and expertise that constitute women's power, which can help us fight the gender assumptions, asymmetries, and injustices that are still not fully dismantled. So before I give the floor to Anna and Maria, a word of thanks, and my apologies, I wasn't able to be here at the very beginning of the conference. So I would like to express my gratitude to MOMus for providing the institutional support, human, material, and technical resources and facilities across 3 museums that enabled us to realize both the exhibition and the conference. A special thanks to the extraordinary director of the Thessaloniki Museum of Photography, Iro Katsaridou, who oversaw all the workings from day one. If I may say, with great enthusiasm, resourcefulness, and grace. Thanks also to curators Arati Leopoulou and Penelope Pezzini for the spirited discussions and creative collaboration. My gratitude extends to the Faculty of Art and Creative Industries of the University of Sunderland for providing generous financial support and time allowance, most importantly, to pursue this project over 2 years, and specifically my colleagues and long-standing research companions, Arabella Pluvier and Amanda Richen, who are with us today. I would also like to warmly thank Effie Paleologou for planning the seat for the conference in the midst of the pandemic. And of course, Fast Forward and the University for the Creative Arts for the financial and infrastructural support, and particularly the formidable Anna Fox and Maria Kapajeva, of course, for whose know-how and amazing organizational skills made this conference possible. So thank you very much. So finally, and I will close with this, a big thank you to all the photography practitioners, historians, curators, archivists, activists, researchers, writers, educators, our speakers, and all of you in the audience for actively contributing to and enhancing these dialogues. I extend our gratitude to the many women who came before us and paved the way, to all those who have faced systemic injustice and exclusion, who have been neglected and or oppressed by law, society, and family, who have had to think outside the box and fight with all their might to overcome institutional and structural barriers, gender prejudice, censorship, and violence. To those who were told they could not do it, but they did it anyway, and often with a child in tow. To those who kept and keep going, a very big thank you.
And thank you to you, Alexandra, for coming and doing such an elegant and eloquent speech. Oh, I'm going to just go explode. And really, I mean, this has been an amazing weekend, and I just feel like a completely new person with all that new knowledge embedded in my brain. Completely overwhelming. But I think that for me, there are some really important points that we've all got from this, and I'm just going to try and summarize those points briefly, and I'm sure I'll miss something, but you guys can add. I think one of the most important things for me is about revising the way that history is told and thought of. You know, we should, I mean, obviously people have started doing this, and we should continue it and do it much faster if we can. Questions of authorship I have really, you know, played on my mind for the last 10 or 20 years, and I think they were really talked very interestingly about here. And positionality in relation to the body of the photographer, I think, was touched on very nicely, but also of the subjects and the viewers. And a new vision for archiving, I feel, is really essential, because in the new projects we're involved in, we've realized how little space there is for archiving, and how many photographers who we don't realize are going to go missing are going to go missing unless we all do something. And of course, research was mentioned, I think, as being important, and of course that is really, really important, but not just for researchers, for the photographers. And I think the photographers themselves, ourselves, should be taking some kind of responsibility in the archiving of our stories. I know that sounds very egocentric, but I know we don't seem to be teaching it, this idea of that. We're thinking about the museums being responsible for it, and that really, the reality of it is that that isn't the case. And I know you're running some very interesting workshops and conferences around this in the UK. I think also this idea, and it goes back to authorship, of collective and collaborative working and protest is very, very vital. And doing that collaboratively and acknowledging collaborators, although I know also that collective working can be difficult, but I think one can sort it out and make it right. And I think there have been some great examples of daringness, and daringness is fantastic. And also of entrepreneurship, which I think is another thing, and women's working practices. So women as entrepreneurs in photography and related careers, I think, is really, really important to acknowledge and to know more about. And the women behind the scenes. So those are my summing up points. I don't know if you have anything to add, Maria.
No, but we kind of, discussed that and talk. I think I just want to add, it was quite impressive and important how much idea and importance of care came across of many practices, many structures, and many research. And I think it's very feminist idea, of course, and I think we need to think about even more of that, and not to forget to care about ourselves from the beginning, and then to care about archives, stories, people around you, people whose stories you're talking about, and through the objects or whatever mediums you have to do that. And I was just in a final panel was grabbing a few kind of words which is stuck with me, and I was thinking about one of the speakers says that women become custodians of memory of the past, but I thought, but we always were, we just didn't become. But I think what this conference is showing again to us, and a fantastic example that we are actually makers of the present, and let's continue to do that work. And I think education, which Anna highlighted, this is very important part of it, how our future will be read, seen, and narrated. So thank you so much of everyone. It was incredible 3 days of very inspirational presentations, discussions during and after. So thank you all who made it happen.
Just a very short note from me. I would like to thank you all for this. Anna, Maria, Alexandra, Penelope, and Areti, who couldn't make it. But I would like to thank my hidden heroes here in this room. Maria Kehayoglu, Adonis Vlachos, Dana Hughes, Maria Kokorotskou, Iraklis Papaioannou, all the group working in front. I hope I'm not missing someone. Eli Tsinoglu, of course. Thank you. Thank you.